Yeah.
24 hours of the best Caribbean music. You're listening to WCPP,
The new 96.1
FM.
Yes, it's a beautiful Fire Friday. Wagwan, wagwan, wagwan. Everybody, hope to you're having a great Fire Friday. Listen, the music came upon me. I was getting ready to dance because I'm in that type of mood. It's a beautiful Friday. Wagwan to my people. It's Suzette Speaks live on your radio. I hope everybody's having a beautiful day. Of course, we are here live in the studio, bringing you the Suzette Speaks show live with the hot topics. Yeah, man, hot topics. News you can use. I'm in a spicy mood, y'all. I don't know. I just read my fortune cookie coming out the car. I don't know if you guys are into fortune cookies, but I am into fortune cookies. So anytime we go at it, Chinese restaurant, them I always get a lot of fortune cookies, and this is terrible, but I love reading them. I was actually just thinking in the car. Do you ever get negative news on a fortune cookie, or is it always or is it always positive? I was thinking about that. I was like, I've never actually really gotten bad news on a fortune cookie. Maybe that's why I love it so much. I'm here looking for my red lipstick. Big up everybody watching on the apps. Big up everybody watching on the YouTube side. The Suzette Speak show is live on YouTube as well. And if you are a faithful listener, big up yourself. We appreciate you. We love the support we get from the community. See it here? Big red lipstick energy. What's up? Y'all see it? Okay. I'm gonna get ready for my show. Big lipstick, big red lipstick energy. Big up everybody watching, like I said, on the apps. Big up everybody watching on the YouTube. And if you're just listening, what go on? I hope everybody's having a beautiful Friday. We do have a little bit of Saharan dust in the atmosphere. That is what the news has been saying. The Saharan dust, it gets caught and it travels far, comes all the way from the continent of Africa, and it's hovering over us, and it's keeping us quite warm, quite humid. I actually wanted to exercise outside last night, and I didn't go outside just because of the dust warning, and that's going to be prevalent in the air through the weekend. So I was Googling, I'm a very big researcher, and I was Googling, I'm like, okay, does Saharan dust actually do anything to you? But apparently, if you have a very sensitive immune system, or if you already have breathing issues where you have difficulty breathing, it can really impact you. So if you are sensitive to sensitive to allergens in general, you can be impacted by the Saharan dust that's in the atmosphere. So just be aware. It's not like you have to kind of be, afraid of it, but just be aware that it's happening right now. There are quite a few Supreme Court cases. I have just gotten to them. I'm not gonna lie. Big up everybody watching. Shout out, say hi in the chat. Well, I'll go on YouTube. But yeah, I have just started reading the Supreme Court cases that have come down. This is the first half of the Supreme Court session, and we're looking at some of the results as to what they are allowing the president to do. Now, every time the president makes a move, this is one thing that I love about the system here in the United States, is that you can have one branch of government do any kind of action, an executive action in this case, and then you have others who may disagree, who will take it to court. And when they take it to court, it's then up to the judicial branch to make a determination as to how far that branch can go. Now, there is a press conference going on. I was watching it at home, trying to get a little bit of the tidbits. Like the Supreme Court decisions are so fresh. I haven't even gotten a chance to really sit down, read them, and go through all of the implications. So as I'm sharing them with you, I am too learning and kind of getting some of the background as to, what does this really mean for the country? Of course, in the United States, we have the three branches of government. Everybody knows, or just in case you don't, we have an executive, right? Which is the president when we talk about the federal government, and which is the governor when we talk about the state government, right? We have the legislative branch, right? So the executive is the one that carries out the laws. The legislative branches of the state government, which is the state House of Representatives, the state Senate, that for us in Florida meets in Tallahassee and other states. They call it the state assembly. They have other names for it, but it's usually two bodies, a larger one and a small one. But on the federal level, we have two houses. One is called the United States Senate, 100 members, two per state. And one is called the U.S. House of Representatives, right, which are equally carved out districts. They represent hundreds of thousands of people in equally carved out districts 435 for all of the United States of America, right? And so they're supposed to be the ones with the power of the purse, that is to spend money, right? The taxpayer dollars that they have allotted or that is collected by our government, right? Sales tax, income tax, all those taxes that we pay. They're supposed to be the ones that make the determination on how that money is then, some would say, redistributed to the people, right? What projects is it used for? What agencies does it fund? What programs does it fund? That is supposed to be Congress, when we talk about the federal government, United States Congress, right? The U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate have to agree and both pass the same version of the bill before it gets to the executive branch, which can either pass it or sign it or veto it, right? So when we look at what we have here at the Supreme Court, we're talking about today the third branch of government, which is the judiciary. And the judicial branch is the branch that I find, again, I'm a lawyer, not giving legal advice today. This is for informational and educational purposes only. But when I look at what's happening, I am reminded that it is a critical part of the function of democracy to have an objective judiciary, that is, judges who are impartial and have not been placed under undue influence. Again, we've been seeing some scenarios within our beautiful country where people are using political violence to make their voices heard. We do not endorse, we do not encourage any kind of political violence. Although within the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, the writers of that great document that is the bedrock, is the foundation of how we in the United States understand our democracy and practice our democracy, that those founders had, I think, to me, divine inspiration of what it meant to be free and what it meant to be liberal, or to be a citizen, right? To have rights and privileges under the law, right? As they also took away rights and privileges under the law each and every day. When laws are made, they are restricting our behavior for the best outcomes of the country or for other reasons, reasonable or not. You know, this is why we have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the way in which we're governed is determined by the people. The people elect their representatives, and the representatives hopefully will go either to the state house, right, to Tallahassee, or to the federal government, right, to D.C., Washington, D.C., to make decisions that will improve the lives of people and spend their money well. So when we are looking at what the Supreme Court has just done, now the judicial branch, there are several layers of the judiciary. You have the local layer, then you have the appellate layer. I'm breaking it down as simply as I can. You have the middle layer where if you don't agree with an outcome or you say, wait a minute, the lower court, the lower judge got it wrong, Your Honor, they should have allowed this evidence if we're talking about criminal court, right? Criminal law. They had allowed this evidence. It shouldn't have been allowed. There was a mistake at what we call the trial court level, the lower level. And then you can appeal it. Thankfully, in the United States, we have a system where you have a couple bites at the apple, right? If you don't like what the first court said to you, you can say, I don't think this judge or this jury got it right. I would have liked to appeal my case. Next highest court, right? That middle tier, the appellate court, can you take up my case? And can you review it? And can you ask or question whether or not that judge or that jury got it right? Was this evidence that was, for example, admitted admissible, or was it not admissible? You know, did the jury get proper jury instructions, et cetera, et cetera? And then we have a Supreme Court. I'm very much simplifying it in each state. The systems are a little bit different, but you have a lower court, a middle tier, and then you have the high court. In the state of Florida, we have the Florida Supreme Court, right, which makes decisions on state court issues, which means state law, right? Your state attorneys, they are defending the Florida Constitution and the Constitution of the United States. But they also have the responsibility to make sure they are the enforcers of the state law on behalf of the people, right? And you have also courts where people sue each other, right? That's what I do. I am also a personal injury attorney, medical malpractice attorney. So I am suing two individuals or an organization, right? An insurance company to say, you should be covering this XYZ because of this incident or this accident or the other driver. You were at fault, You should be covering this because you, the driver, was at fault. Therefore, you have an insurance company that should be covering, my injuries or my hospital stay, etc. All right. So we have three layers of the court in general, right? At the state level, each state in the country, all 50 states have a lower, middle, and high. I'm oversimplifying it just so we get an idea of what the court system is like. And then we have it on the federal level, right? Washington, D.C. You have the lower courts, which we call the U.S. district courts on the federal level, right? This is for federally based law, United States constitutional law, and the federal codes, the federal statutes, right? If you break those, that's like the tax law, you go to federal court. Immigration law is also federal, right? So they have their purpose, but immigration courts are also funded separately. But nonetheless, you have a lower, middle, and high. Just want you to remember that. So right now, the very highest court that we have in the land is called the United States Supreme Court. They are made up of 9 justices, right? And they are appointed by presidents. Before they're appointed, they're interviewed by the United States senators, the 100, right? The 100 on the Judiciary Committee. They question soon-to-be nominees. Sometimes they're approved, sometimes they're not. And a whole lot of their past comes up, and we've seen, and you may have remembered seeing certain Supreme Court justices, now Supreme Court justices, in their interview process. We remember the big ones. Clarence Thomas, you remember his hearing? It's kind of a lot of, allegations, kind of sketchy came up about him. And the other people, Brett Kavanaugh, and other people that are now on the court. And their pasts are, unfortunately, or fortunately, some would say, an open book. And then people get to look into it. The Judiciary Committee in the United States Senate gets to question them. And then the entire Senate votes, and they have to get the majority, right? So these 9 people hold a very, very, very high position in the government, and it's very important what they say, right? Because there's no higher court in the United States, right? You have the U.S. district courts, which is the lower court, what we call the trial court. You have the U.S. appellate courts, right? That middle tier where if you feel like you get the bottom, the lower judge or jury got it wrong, we got another bite of the apple. Like I said, we have a system where if something goes wrong, we try to fix it. And then second tier courts, the appellate tier, the middle tier gets it, and then it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court. Well, today, there were several decisions by the Supreme Court that came down, most in 6-3, 6 justices for, 3 justices against. Remember, the Supreme Court is comprised of 9 justices. So we have seen several different rulings by the Supreme Court made public. And like I said, right on my way here, I didn't get a chance to sit down and read all of them. I'm going to learn about them with you, right? I'm going to cover them with you. And as we talk about them, if you have a question, you can go ahead and give me a call. I wanted to touch on some immigration. If my sister-in-law and fellow Voice of the Caribbean host, Opa Lee, I had texted her, but literally on my way to the studio. I should have done it last night. But Opa Lee, if you're listening, you can call in, because I see and I hear a lot of misinformation about the immigration processes on social media. Of course, we have seen an increase of ICE, the presence of the immigration and border folks, right? Immigration and customs enforcement, right? We've seen a lot more raids. We see a lot of people being picked up at their jobs. And the people are confused as to if you are a permanent resident, especially even of the so-called banned countries. Mr. Trump, we talked about it here on the Suzette Speaks show. Mr. Trump had laid out several countries now that are either going to be or are partially banned. You cannot travel from that country directly or to that country directly, or fully banned. One of them is Haiti. Of course, we know Venezuela. That we talked about that at length, and there's a lot of people who have a lot to say about these bans. But nonetheless, if you are a legal permanent resident, you can still move about. And again, I want my immigration sister-in-law, Miss Opali, if you're listening, give me a call, darling. And if not, I will make a time certain in the future where you can call in and get from an immigration practitioner. Of course, I do not practice immigration. I do personal injury law. If you're in a car accident or an accident at work, employment, those kind of injuries, or medical malpractice, if you get injured during the course of being seen by a doctor, right? Some people, unfortunately, it's just a natural cause, but other times it can be very much an error where a physician is liable. So I do those type of cases as well. But on the immigration front, I really want to bring the community some good information. I'm going to set up a time with our sister-in-law here, or my sister-in-law at Voice of the Caribbean. We're both attorneys is what I mean by that. Read between the lines. And she is also a fantastic host during the weekend, playing good music and giving good advice. Tune into her show, the Oprah Lee Show. And I'm going to beg her to come back on here because I want to give you some information, especially when it comes to people saying don't leave, even if you have a permanent residency, right? A legal green card. Some people say, even me, I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born in Jamaica. And there are people who have that type of status who are afraid to travel, like thinking about it. Now, for me, when it comes to, the updates of your documents, making sure you have the newest driver's license and other things, it's very important to do those things. And we've seen some cases, and I'm going to cover one in just a little bit on the second half of the show, of a man whose three sons are in the United States Marines. One is a retired Marine Corps, two are active duty Marine Corps. And the man who has been here more than 30 years, and he came in the 90s, his status is not complete. And he was taken in by ICE while he was cutting the grass. Had the weed whacker in the hand. The ICE agents claimed that he pushed it on them or was trying to use it as a weapon, allegedly. And the video is very harrowing. The man was punched or struck in the face, as I saw in the video, several times. And they were telling him, saying that he was resisting arrest. This is a man who has three sons fighting for this country. And one of the sons made some commentary. I was listening to NPR this morning, thinking about, what if that was my dad? What if your dad, who had, and someone was asked, why hadn't he changed his status? Why hadn't he gotten his citizenship? He was like, my dad was working 24/7 to take care of his kids. It was always about his family and trying to, even, in his older age, he's still cutting grass and do anything he can do to take care of his family. So, there's some things going on in the immigration side that I want to make sure my listeners are very much aware of. And I don't want people to become, too distressed or distracted, especially when you have your legal paperwork. I do not want you to become discouraged about traveling and things like this. It's really important that you know the rules and that you are able to, govern yourself accordingly. So we're going to get some information from Ms. Opali soon. And then also, like I said, I want to cover some of the Supreme Court rulings that just came down. In a major victory for President Trump, the court restricted the ability of federal judges to block his executive orders. This is just 17 minutes ago. I'm reading directly from the New York Times. So I haven't even had a chance, like I said, to digest some of these and to give you some of my legal insights on them. This is just happening now, fresh off the press. All right. So we're looking at the Supreme Court's new rulings just came out. In a major victory for President Trump, the court restricted the ability of federal judges to block his executive orders. The decision may reshape the the way U.S. citizenship is granted, because he put out an executive order. The president did. Mr. Trump put out an executive order that was, questioning people's, citizenship, not granting automatic citizenship for birthright. So we have a lot more to discuss, y'all. I want you guys to stay tuned. We have some great vibes coming. Of course, this is a Fire Friday. I also want to remind you that Morgan Heritage, it'll be in the building. That's tomorrow. I'll be in the house. Mike, DJ Undisputed, and many more will be in the house as we get ready to celebrate Yard on the Lawn in the city of Tamarack. Wagwan, city of Tamarack. Did you know the tickets are free? City of Tamarack, June 28th. Tamarack Sports Complex, 9901 Northwest 77th Street, Tamarack, tomorrow, 6 to 9, featuring Morgan Heritage. Miss Kitty will be hosting out of Jamaica. And again, this is free at the Tamarack Sports Complex. If you want to come out, enjoy yourself, get ready to have a good time. This is the Suzette Speaks show. I come to you every Thursday and Friday. We got to take a quick pause from the cause. Right after this, we have more Suzette Speaks show live. Stay tuned.
It's the voice of the Caribbean. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, X, TikTok, and YouTube.
This is Mikey Mike from the Voice of the Caribbean. For over the last 30 years, personal injury lawyer Sam Rogotinsky have been helping.
So I have somebody vacuuming right outside of my door. I have to ask him to stop.
Negligence, security, wrongful death, and sexual abuse cases.
Hear myself.
We know it is impossible to go longer than 5 minutes before you hear a commercial from another personal injury lawyer. I am here today to tell you there's a difference in who you choose to represent you in your personal injury case. Experience and client service matters when it comes to choosing your personal injury lawyer. When you call Sam Rogotinsky on his personal cell phone, you will get attention until your case is over. You can call him or text him day or night on his cell phone at 954-995-3805, 954-995-3805. And if he can't answer, he will call you back. Let me repeat, he will call you back. It will be Sam Rogotinsky giving your case the attention it deserves. For over 30 years, Sam Rogotinsky have been helping Florida clients with personal injury, workers' compensation, medical malpractice, negligence, insecurity, wrongful death, and sexual abuse cases. Don't make the mistake and call the wrong lawyer. Sam results speaks for themselves. For more information.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. This is the Suzette Speaks show. Hey, how are you, Jiro? Hi, the ABX girl and Wagwan. Who is that? Amal? Nice to meet you, and thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I literally was hearing the vacuuming. I don't know if you guys could hear it while I'm in the background. These mics are so sensitive. So I'm literally listening to the vacuuming and I'm like out talking the vacuuming, and it was just weird. Also, we ain't got no internet. So I have my laptop open, ready to do my research. The internet was fine, and then all of a sudden it's unplugged. So now I got to read from afar from the mic and the thing here. If you're watching me online, shout out to you too. But I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Like, you know, when you have stuff already set up and then it's like, what's happening? That's how I feel. So I have my web pages already open. Shaw, you guys get to see my hair. I have new hair next week. Bam bam. I'm really tired. I'm not tired of this, but I'm gonna be hosting a huge event in one of the larger cities here in South Florida. I'll be emceeing their July 4th celebration. Super excited about that. I'll be the mistress of ceremonies, bands, you know, local performances and things like this. Super excited about it. Listen, I have been coming here without my lashes. I think my eyes look small as I look at you. But no lashes today, no lashes yesterday. But I still feel cute. Hey, so let me know if you have any plans for the weekend. Hey, what's going on, Doug? Drop a message in the chat. This weekend I'll be out and about. There are a couple of Caribbean American Heritage events. One, like I said, my radio is doing. I wonder if I should do Facebook Live. If you guys see me cut this and go to Facebook, don't judge me. I'm going to do a little bit on Facebook Live. But I look sleepy because I don't have my lashes on. It's all good. But if you have plans for the weekend, drop it in the chat. This is another thing I'm into. Hot water. Shout out to me. Sorry I'm putting you guys on. There you go. Is that better? I don't know if it'll stay because I'll be trying to. Is that better? Okay, I'll leave it. Thank you. I appreciate it, Doug. I'm like, listen, some days you got it all. Some days you just got to get to the office. I hope you guys have a good weekend. Let me read this real quick. Oh, my Lord. Let me read what the Supreme Court is saying, because I didn't even get to read it. I was on my way here when this came out, so I didn't get to read it in depth. Supreme Court on Friday limited the ability of federal judges to simply pause upon the executive order, the major victory. This is crazy, but the justices made no ruling on the constitutionality of his move to blah, blah, blah. They stopped his order from taking effect for 30 days. The 6-3 decision by Judge Amy Coney Barrett split along ideological lines, may drastically reshape how citizenship is granted in the United States. Wow, even temporarily. The ruling means that. Where is our internet? See, I'm reading so far, and I had these articles pulled up on my computer, but all of a sudden, no internet. Bro, what's going on? Well, nothing I can do about it. I could just read from afar. Hit the like button, will you please? And I hope you have a great weekend. Like I said, I have 2 events tomorrow. For July 4th. I'll be planning a family barbecue. I am planning a family barbecue. I'm stressed out. I come from a pretty big family. Everybody want to know what to bring. And we rented a pavilion. And we rented a chef to do the barbecuing. So we'll see how it goes. I'm excited. We used to do these all the time prior to COVID. Wait, I'm gonna save some of this for the radio. I'm gonna save some of this for the radio. Let me get some of this for the radio. Praise be to God. We got new microphones. That looks cute. Okay, I look cute on both. I'm fine. All right, yeah, we got new microphones that are very sensitive, so I'm not supposed to touch the top of it. That was like a big deal yesterday. I have to be careful. We got these superly highly sensitive mics now, so everything. I don't know if you guys could hear the vacuuming, but one of our friends here in the office was vacuuming. Like, bro, I can hear it through this mic.
12 for free, sponsored by Aqua.
I gotta be careful because I do not want to get copywritten. Oh, give thanks. I am ready for the Friday. Oh, I'm gonna read my I had a fortune cookie, but I guess I put it outside. Duh. All right. Anyway, let me know what you guys are doing for the weekend or for the holiday. Wait, will I be able to host? Yeah, I'll be able to do my show on July 4th. Yeah, because I have an event at 5:30 on July 4th. So I will be hosting 5:30 to 9. There's some good parties, actually. So I got to figure out where to go and what is happening. Anyway, 2 minutes to showtime. But shout out to everybody watching. Thank you. I'm going to have to read these from afar. Birthright citizenship. I have to read this from afar. Dang. What are the other ones? So, all right, so that's one, the birthright citizenship. Let me just look up Supreme Court real quick.
MJ Carcel.
All right, Supreme Court. Let me see, Supreme Court decisions. Again, I don't know why our internet all of a sudden does not want to work. I just work here, guys. I don't get into it. So, limits. Supreme Court preserves Obamacare coverage. That's a good one. Supreme Court allows law requiring age checks for adult websites. Okay, that's really interesting. Let me open up that. All right, we're getting ready to go back live.
Support to this radio station.
So I'm gonna tell them when about down low, you must be mad, we couldn't do that. Foundation from birth, yeah man, a low culture. Say, we're representing for the vice of the Caribbean, Jamaica and far beyond.
24 hours of the best Caribbean music. You're listening to WCPP.
The new 96.1
FM.
Yo, it's Shuggy, it's voice of Caribbean. Been while I'm in the middle of that shit, yeah.
Yes, good afternoon and welcome back. It is a beautiful Fire Friday. Wagwan, wagwan. It's Suzette Speaks live on your radio. Happy Friday. I'm talking to y'all like y'all right in front of me. Listen, I text a couple of ladies today and I was saying happy Thursday and I know they thought I was crazy. I'm like, is it Friday already? I don't know about you, but the time has been going so quickly and I was waiting for Friday. It finally gets here and it still feels like Thursday. But no, it's happy Friday. I hope you guys have plans for the weekend. We do right here at the Voice of the Caribbean. We will be outside. Yes, join us June 28th. Tomorrow in the city of Tamarack in the evening, there's going to be a free show. All you have to do is RSVP on Eventbrite. Yes, the show is called Yard on the Lawn Music Fest. Yard on the Lawn Music Festival features none other than Morgan Heritage, and it will be emceed by Miss Kitty out of Jamaica. Free admission. All you have to do is book a ticket on Eventbrite. This is presented by the City of Tamarack in partnership with Voice of the Caribbean Radio. Again, this celebrates Caribbean American Heritage Month. This is how we're going to take it out with a bang. We also know at the City of Miramar, there's also going to be a celebration of Taste of the Islands, celebrating tomorrow, again, Caribbean American Heritage Month. So we have a bunch of events. We're going to be outside, as I told you. I'm looking forward to next week. I made the announcement is official. I will be also emceeing for the city of Miramar next week their July 4th celebration. Happy Independence. First of all, do you have your itinerary lined up? This is the best time to live in South Florida, where there's a lot of activities, a lot of, whether it's parties, stage shows, plays, comedy shows, we have it all. So wanted to know, do you have your plans for this weekend? I know where I'll be. I'll be at Yard on the Lawn, City of Tamarack, tomorrow evening, featuring Miss Kitty and headliner Morgan Heritage. Free tickets, City of Tamarack. Just go on Eventbrite and book your ticket, and we will see you at the Tamarack Sports Complex. Also, there's a lot of other Caribbean American heritage festivals this weekend. Yeah, so you have a lot to do, and many of them are free. So a lot you can do, a lot of ways to enjoy life and celebrate culture. Yeah, because I know they want us to forget this is a nation of immigrants, but guess what? There's many of us who help to make sure, we contribute to the American melting pot. And that's one of the things that I love about South Florida. There's so many of us that have both our national pride, happy birthday United States as well, but we also do have our cultural pride, right? As many immigrants did before us. So we're here to also celebrate both. So we'll see you tomorrow, June 28th. Get your tickets again. Eventbrite, City of Tamarack presents Morgan Heritage in a show called Yard on the Lawn Music Festival. DJ Mikey Mike, DJ Undisputed, Miss Kitty, like I said, from out of Tamarack, and many more will be there. Yours truly, Suzette Speaks, will be there rocking the mic for a little bit. But, I'm going to step and let Miss Kitty do our thing. Yeah? So we're so excited to be in partnership with the City of Tamarack. I know there are things that are going on. I see Miss Lisa B texting me. Miss Lisa B, I'm on a live on my phone, so I can't quite get to your message. But she said there's also a show this weekend featuring Rupee, which also celebrates Caribbean American Heritage Month. Yeah, so as I was saying before the break, we have a lot going on. We'll be outside next weekend too. Start line up your itinerary, get your tickets. Yes, because July 4th weekend is going to be big. I'm excited. I will be again hosting City of Miramar's July 4th celebration. It'll be in the evening, fireworks show, lots of food, friendly, family-friendly fun. And I'm looking forward to taking the stage over there. And Saturday, I was just telling my homegirl, I am helping to plan my own family. We're going to have a barbecue on Saturday. So I'm really excited. We haven't had like a family get together like that since before COVID. We used to do picnics all the time. I don't even like to use the word picnic because if you know where the origin comes from. So I'm going to say barbecue. But we used to have these barbecues all the time. I come from a very big family. So now it's my turn to help plan one. So Alu have to buy the box of chicken. You guys know I've been lining up everybody with donations. We're renting a pavilion. We hired a chef. It's going to be nice for July 4th weekend. And I got to go to Sam's Club and do some of the shopping so I can make sure we have lots of food. But it's all about the family. You understand? Lots of games, of course. We're going to hang out together at the park. And I'm hoping to get family that we haven't seen in a while. COVID kind of throw off the vibes and the rhythm. People don't take the time sometimes to visit or, just stop by, say hello, and fellowship. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that July 4th weekend. So just to give you some ideas, maybe you want to celebrate with your family too. I know food costs are up, but there's a lot of stuff that you could do for free. So whether it's just go to the park and light up your barbecue or do what you want to do, but we have to celebrate one another and we have to cherish the time that we have together. So I'm going to try to do that and then play my role. But what is really breaking news right now is the Supreme Court of the United States, as I was telling you before the break, has sent down several rulings. One of which I wanted to cover because one, it preserves Obamacare. So the Supreme Court, let me just read it. According to Politico, I'm taking this from Politico. This all happened this morning, you guys. So even as an attorney, I didn't get a chance to go through each ruling in detail. I'm discovering the news right along with you. Yeah. So this is directly from the United States Supreme Court. Remember, it's the highest court in the land. And what they decide becomes the end of the dispute, right? That is the law. So their interpretation of the law at the highest level, again, that's where the buck stops. So the Supreme Court, when it comes to Obamacare, the Supreme Court this morning preserved the provision of the Affordable Care Act, also known as the Obamacare, that requires insurance companies to cover preventative health services like colonoscopies and HIV prevention drugs at no cost to patients. Big ruling. So I'll say it again. So the Supreme Court has preserved, right, the provision in the Obamacare in the Affordable Care Act that requires insurance companies to cover preventative health services like colonoscopies, and HIV prevention drugs at no cost to patients. That's huge. It's the fourth time in the past 13 years that the High Court has rejected major challenges to the 2010 bill, right? This is a Barack Obama bill, remember, during his time. So that's why we call it Obamacare, but it's also called the Affordable Care Act, the ACA. So this is the fourth time in 13 years that the High Court has rejected a major challenge to that healthcare law. This time around, the vote was 6-3 with Justice Brett Kavanaugh writing for the majority in an opinion that crossed ideological bounds. So it wasn't just the more conservative versus the more liberal judges. Some conservative and liberals came together for 6 out of the 9 to write the majority. That means it was a cross ideological line. So that basically means the case centered on a panel of experts known as the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force. The Affordable Care Act authorized the task force to specify health screenings and other preventative services that insurance must cover without charging patients co-payments, deductibles, or even cost sharing. So this board, the U.S. Preventative Service Task Force, was given the task by the Affordable Care Act to specify healthcare screenings and other preventative services that insurers must cover without charging patients co-payments, deductibles, or cost sharing. Tens of millions of Americans rely on these services, including cancer screenings, heart disease medications, and the drug known as PrEP for the prevention of HIV. So it looks like the Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act again, and this particular provision. So that is one of the breaking stories. Now, I want to talk about the birthright citizenship one. This is another ruling that came out today. Again, I'm reading it for the first time. I'll right along with you. This is out of the New York Times. This is what the Supreme Court did, a judgment that they put out, right? This is their ruling. So today, the Supreme Court on Friday, today, limited the ability, and this has to do with executive orders, limited the ability of federal judges. Remember, I told you there's a lower court, there's a medium court, and there's a high court. So the judges on the federal court, or we call it on the bench, and sitting on the judicial bench, right? These judges, listen to what it says. On today, they have limited the ability of federal judges to temporarily pause President Trump's executive orders, a major victory for the Trump administration. But the judges made no ruling on the constitutionality, meaning whether it was constitutional or not, for him to move to end birthright citizenship. So again, if you don't understand, Trump put out executive orders like a bunch in the last 6 months, right? Remember when he first came in office, he sat it in the arena with a table and a big pen and a big paper and start signing executive orders. But remember, only Congress can make law. The president and the administration, the executive branch is supposed to enforce the law. But he has been doing a lot of, many people will argue, right? People who don't agree with him, lawmaking, like rulemaking from the president's desk through the process of making executive orders. Well, the judges made no ruling on the constitutionality of his move through an executive order to end birthright citizenship. And they stopped his order from taking effect for 30 days. So they didn't say whether or not that particular executive order is right or wrong. They just now are limiting federal judges from placing stays, which meaning pause. We got to look at this longer. I'm not going to let President Trump's executive order go into effect. I want to look at it longer, so we're going to stay. We're going to pause it. That's what that means. Stay the ruling or stay the order. Right? So in the decision 6-3, written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett and split again, it wasn't all the conservative justices versus all the liberal justices. Sometimes they have the same outlook, where some of the more conservative leaning justices and the more liberal leaning justices agree, and this is one of the cases. So it wasn't along ideological lines; it split those lines. So this basic ruling, according to the New York Times, may drastically reshape how citizenship is granted in the United States, even temporarily. The ruling means that the practice of giving citizenship automatically to U.S.-born children of undocumented immigrants and some temporary residents and visitors would end in the 28 states that have not challenged the order. Listen again. So temporarily, the ruling means that the practices of giving, and I know many people who, live here as residents, have a child here, and they are natural-born citizens of the United States. There are people who are undocumented, who have children here, and the children, therefore, according to U.S. law, the Constitution, have been deemed citizen. But Mr. Trump wants to change that via an executive order. He signed an executive order in order to change that. But the court has not ruled on the constitutionality of that yet, whether the provision in his executive order is right or wrong. Should they not be given a citizenship? Is it already in the Constitution? But for right now, Mr. Trump tried to end birthright citizenship via executive order. But in a 6-3 decision written by Justice Amy Coney Barrett and splitting the ideological lines on the court, some of the conservative justices and the more liberal justices agreed. And they wrote, and again, this may dramatically reshape how citizenship is granted in the United States, even temporarily. The ruling means that the practice of giving citizenship automatically to the U.S.-born children of undocumented immigrants and some temporary residents and visitors would end in the 28 states that have not challenged the order. We don't know yet what the Supreme Court will rule on the merits, meaning whether that provision, that executive order is constitutional or not. But they have now limited a judge's or order, the federal judge's orders of stay to stop the president's executive orders from going into effect. They have tried to now, the Supreme Court is saying they can't, they're more limiting it. So the birthright citizenship case is unusual, and not only because it is not really about birthright citizenship. At the case argument in May, the justices mostly focused on whether the injunctions entered by 3 federal trial judges blocking the Trump administration's plan to end the practice were too broad. So they're focused more on whether the injunctions by the judges to stay the cases were too broad, not necessarily whether or not Trump has, as the president, an executive order right to end birthright citizenship by himself. But when the court sat down for the argument, according to the New York Times, it did not grant a review of petition. That meant it was hard to know the precise question before the court. Senator Chuck Schumer, actually, he was sick the other day. I hope he's feeling better. The Democrat from New York and the minority leader in the U.S. Senate, he, in a dire warning, warned that the Supreme Court's decision to limit the court's authority to block illegal executive actions marked a quote, and this is Chuck Schumer, the leading Democrat in the Senate, says this is a terrifying step towards authoritarianism, meaning, in his opinion, judges should be able to block an executive branch decision that they don't think is constitutional and stay it and put it on hold and say pause 30 days, 20 days, 45 days, indefinite pause until it gets to the Supreme Court. They have had that right in the past, but now the courts are now limiting federal judges' ability to stay and to pause an executive order. So according to Chuck Schumer, his opinion, he said that Congress had to check the unimpeded power of an out-of-control executive branch. So judges usually could put a check on, remember with the system of government we have, checks and balances, meaning no branch is supposed to be more powerful than the other. We do not have a king. We do not have a dictator. We do not have one single person that can make laws. It's supposed to be Congress. So, in Chuck Schumer's opinion, saying, quote, Republican members must stand up for core American democratic values and not for the unchecked presidential power of the kind that our founding founders most deeply feared. So we go back to that Constitution. Did they intend for a president to have unchecked power? Chuck Schumer, other Democrats, even other independents and other commentators are questioning whether this Supreme Court ruling is a good one for the country, right? So we have seen a few more. The birthright citizenship one is the biggest one. Progressive House Democrats on Friday denounced the Supreme Court's decision on birthright citizenship and warned that all basic rights were now under attack. So this is one Democrat in the U.S. House, Mr. Greg Casar of Texas. He says, quote, birthright citizenship was added to the Constitution at the end of the Civil War, said Representative Greg Casar of Texas, the chairman of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Quote, it is a basic idea. When you're born in America, you are an American. That's what Trump is trying to take away. By failing to protect this basic constitutional right, the Supreme Court is declaring open season on all of our rights. That is from Democrat Greg Casar of Texas. All right, but the U.S. Attorney General, on the other hand, Pam Bondi, again, raising her voice during a press conference. I watched a little bit of it today. I encourage you to go watch on YouTube or wherever the whole thing. After the Supreme Court, made this ruling, the Trump administration felt very confident. They started to say, oh, no, thank you, Supreme Court. They're on our side. No judge can stop us from making an executive order. Who are these federal judges? So when she spoke during today's press conference about the Supreme Court order and the several rulings that they had passed, Pam Bondi from Florida, the U.S. Attorney General, I should put respect on her name, Pam Bondi, raising her voice during the press conference, shouted and dodged questions of whether the government will prioritize enforcement of restrictions on birthright citizenship by telling reporters that they should feel, quote, safer because of the increased border enforcement. So this is a big challenge to birthright citizenship. Mr. Trump signed an executive order trying to limit it and remove it, birthright citizenship, which is a constitutional right. Where did it come from? The Civil War. Baby, we did some history lessons last week for Juneteenth. We talked about this because in the Constitution, wow, there's actually, I wish I had more time. There's actually a University of Florida student who has written a very controversial paper that has made the news because in his law school class, he argues, and he won an award for it, as what they call strict constructionist. Constructionism is the look that many conservatives take at the law, that we should only follow what the real and the original writers of the Constitution intended. Well, when the Constitution was written, the reason why we had to include birthright citizenship as a law in America is because people of African descent were not considered citizens. They were considered 3/5 of a person. So in this University of Florida law student's controversial paper, for which he won an award by his professor who was a judge teaching his class, he won the book award, meaning the highest award in the class. He argued in his paper that there should be no birthright citizenship. And basically, to summarize, allegedly, I have not read the paper myself. I was reading the news reports about it, that he was saying that the Constitution should only apply to white Americans because at the time when it was written, it was only intended by the framers for white Americans. And you should add on that, when the Constitution was written, it really was only intended for white land-owning men, property-owning men only. So that would disenfranchise white women, every other ethnicity of women, every other ethnicity of man. And he wrote this controversial paper, which has now, again, made headline news. Because he says, well, if we're following the Constitution by the strict construction method, what was intended by the founders and the framers, the people who wrote it originally, almost 250 odd years ago, was that it only applied to white people. So why are we even talking about immigration? According to this paper, I've not read the paper myself, but I did read the headlines and I shared it with a bunch of my friends, fellow lawyers, because I said, look at this. University of Florida has a student that won a book award, top award in his class, for writing a very controversial paper asserting that since the Constitution should be, in his opinion, interpreted as the founders intended, none of the laws that are now expanded to make our union, some would argue, a more perfect union, including black people, including women, including minorities, including people with disabilities, including everybody else, that it shouldn't even apply because the framers never intended it. Listen, I can't even get into some of these other Supreme Court rulings. It looks like there's another one having to do with adult, videos, etc., and making sure that it is now a requirement that or they are allowing the requirement that the user of adult videos should have to show age ID or prove age ID. Listen, we're out of time. There's so much going on. I want to wish you guys a happy weekend. I hope to see you tomorrow on June 28th at the Tamarack Sports Complex for Yard on the Lawn featuring Morgan Heritage, 6 to 9 p.m. again, presented by the city of Tamarack. Of course, Voice of the Caribbean will be in the building. Mikey Mike, Undisputed, myself, Lisa B, Miss Chin, the whole crew will be out there celebrating Caribbean American Heritage Month. Yo, we have to go. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Thank you so much for listening. And I'll see you next week. Have a happy weekend, y'all. Take care.
Wanda, Egyptian, Richie Stevens, Tony Rebel, Singing Melody, Louis Culture, and many more. Enjoy one of our mouth-watering Jamaican dishes while dancing and singing along.
It doesn't say any white man. It just says that when they wrote it, they didn't even think of other people as human beings. So if we're going by the letter of the law, sorry, I'm like being recorded still on this one. I don't know if you can hear me. Thanks for watching. That's going to be a good video. Turn it off this video. That's what they intended. Bye, guys. See you. It's okay. We're good. We're finishing up. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.
For over the last 30 years,
We got